Hi, it's Catherine Mora here. I just wanted to give you a bit of background about myself and my Change Empire books business and basically how we got to where we are and what we're up to now. So, my background was actually in marketing and media. So, I spent most of my career after university working in roles in corporate, government, non-profits, mostly as an in-house marketing person and publicist. And I had one agency role as well. So I learned a lot from all of those years. But in between long stints of marketing and media, I took some career breaks and went traveling, lived overseas. I worked on cruise ships. I went and lived in New York and studied dance. I lived in Paris and basically just ate lots of pastries. And I lived in London for many years and I worked in London as well. And I studied performing and a whole bunch of other things. Now, people would often tell me I should write a book about my life, but I used to think, well, no one knows who I am. Like, who am I to write a book? I've changed my mind on that now, but at the time, that's what I used to think. So eventually, I actually decided to write a novel inspired by my experience on cruise ships. Now, I decided to write that novel when my son was only 6 weeks old, and I thought to myself, well, since I'm going to have all this spare time being at home, I should write a book. So, firstly, it proves that I'm very optimistic and probably also a little bit delusional. But I basically decided to write a book, and it took me about 2 years to write that book because I didn't know any of the tips or tricks on how to write a book, and I did lots of experimenting with what to do, what not to do, probably a lot more of what not to do really in the end. But I did get offered a publishing deal. I did turn that down because I had already decided to self-publish and had a big plan. And I'm glad I did actually, because I learned really everything about how to do the book and all the editing and the different types of editing and how to get into the media and all of that. There was a whole lot that I learned, probably thousands of hours and tens of thousands of dollars that I spent on that journey. So in the end, my book actually was pretty successful, but not successful enough to actually leave my job. And so eventually I went and studied coaching, and I really, really loved coaching, found it very powerful. I spent about a year trying to get my business off the ground and eventually worked with a really amazing business coach and mentor who helped me pick a niche, which was actually book coaching. Now, that's how I got into doing books. The first year and a bit, I only helped people write the first draft. So I had a 16-week program. You started with an idea. We did the foundational stuff around why you're writing a book, the objective, your audience, and the outline, and a bunch of that other preparation stuff, which is what most people miss when they're writing a book. They just start writing and then they don't understand why it all falls over. Then we would spend about 3 months with them working on the book and me giving feedback and keeping them going with accountability. And then ultimately we would just have a final call about what the next steps were. Now, this was great. The only issue was that as soon as I wasn't holding their hand, a lot of people would kind of fall over in a heap when it came to everything that came afterwards. I'd give them email addresses for editors and things, but unless I was there facilitating the process, it didn't tend to go very well. And also I just spent the next 6 months giving them free advice, like, what do I do now? What do I do now? So then I gathered around me a group of really amazing editors and designers and formatters and people doing technical stuff like all the uploading ISBNs and barcodes and all of that good stuff. And I now have a team of about 15 people that I can call upon. And we do offer that as a whole package end to end so that people don't have to worry about it and it's all taken care of by their own project manager. And now we've also introduced more of an a la carte menu where you can pick what bits you want because you might already have a great designer you work with, for example. So that's kind of where we got to with that. And then really the next thing that I noticed was missing was the bit after the book comes out. So all my clients would end up with these incredibly beautiful books out in the world and their launch would go great and we had lots of bestsellers. But then while a few of my clients did really well, one client turned 100 grand a year before her book into 1 and 200 grand months a year after her book came out, from using the book to be seen as an expert, bringing people into her world and then selling them programs. Another client went from charging sort of 12 to 15,000 US for a keynote or a subject matter expert speech. She turned that into a $20,000 to $25,000 fee. So a few of my clients have done really, really well. I had a couple other success stories there as well. But basically, there was a whole bunch of people who didn't really get to those levels when their book came out. They had the great launch and they might have been a bestseller, but then they didn't really follow up. And we talked about how to do it, but I think people do like having that support from an expert. So the next iteration of the business more recently has actually been, I have networked with incredible experts who do things like book publicity and book marketing and book launches and, how to use your book to get speaking gigs and all of these things. People who train on how to get TEDx talks and how to structure them and how to get professional speaking and how to create courses that align with your book and how to create funnels where you use your book. So there's all these experts, because I know a little bit about all those things, but I'm not an expert, and I pretty much stay in my lane with regards to books. So I've now gathered these experts around me, and my one-on-one clients get to actually have 1 hour strategy calls with these experts as well, like proper, really meaty strategy, not sales calls. And that's part of their one-on-one package as well, that they can meet with these people and come up with a strategy for using their book to go to their next level and become a thought leader, achieve those massive, big, lofty objectives like being a household or international name, being on big stages, that kind of thing. So that's where we're really going with Change Empire Books, is not just creating authors, but creating thought leaders. So I'm always growing that network as well. I'm happy to have recommendations to people who do assist with those sort of end leverage pieces, because I really want to provide that value to my clients. So that's really where Change Empire Books is now. I personally have now grown a team of writing coaches to work with me on Change Empire Books, and I'm starting to coach people in other areas around creating their business and mindset. I'm learning things like NLP and hypnosis and timeline therapy and the universal laws, law of attraction, harnessing manifestation, things like that. So I'm always working on myself on the side and what I'm offering people, to keep my skills up and to keep moving on. But we've got a really amazing book coaching and publishing business that I'm very heavily involved in. And I would love to talk to you about books if that's ever on your agenda. And that's a bit about me and Change Empire Books. And I'll talk to you soon. Bye for now.